Okay, we're on day 3 of our benchmark, MP3 benchmark review. Not a lot of problems on this page, but a couple tricky ones. So in the first one we have a rhombus, and remember with the rhombus there's a whole lot of properties that can make our lives a lot easier. So a couple of things on the diagonals. The diagonals bisect the angles that they intersect, and the diagonals are also perpendicular to each other in the rhombus. So those are going to be helpful to us here because we're trying to find angle measures. The one property we have of the rhombus is that all 4 of the sides are equal, but this question is not asking us anything about the sides, right? It just wants us to find angle measures. So let's think about what angle measures we could get here. So we know that the diagonals are perpendicular to each other, so that's a 90-degree angle right there. So angle 4, he's going to be 90 degrees. We can write that down right away if we want. Okay. Angle 1 and 2, they're going to be the same thing. So if we find one, we find the other because those angles are bisected. And remember that these diagonals bisect all the angles they dive into. So this is also 32. And in a rhombus, remember that opposite angles, it's a parallelogram. So that rule that opposite angles are equal is still true. So this would have to be 32 and 32 here as well. And then to find angle 1 and 2, take a look at this right triangle that's up here. You see that? You have angle 1, angle 4. Angle 4 is 90 degrees. Okay, so that means that angle 1 plus 32 degrees have to add up to 90 as well. So that means angle 1 would have to be 90 minus 32. Which is 58. Okay, so that gives us all 4 of the angles that they're asking us for. Then angle 1 is 58 degrees. Angle 2 right there is also 58 degrees. And then finally angle 3 we had was 32 degrees. Okay, so that's the first one. Several angles there, but because we have a rhombus, we're able to get them all pretty easily. Yeah, the next one I thought was the trickiest one. We have an isosceles trapezoid. So what I have to deduce from that is that the base angles are equal. So like N and O, they're equal to each other, and also M and P are equal. Okay, and then you have the bases that are parallel to each other. So we're going to have alternate interior angles that are equal to each other there. So see this 28 down here? Right? That's an alternate interior to this little angle up here. Now that's not the angle I'm looking for. The angle I want is MNP. I want this one in here. See if I can lock in. That's the angle that I want, M to N to P. Okay? So I do know that I have 28 degrees up there. So the second thing that I'm going to deduce, I'm going to take 42 plus 28 and just look at that whole isosceles trapezoid. So this is 70. So that means this whole angle down here is 70, which means the angle adjacent to it, right? It's in an isosceles trapezoid. These two angles have to add up to 180 degrees, right? These two will add to 180, and these two will add to 180, and we'll have 360 because it's isosceles. So if those two angles add to 180, then that means this whole angle up here is 110. That's this whole piece here. That's not the one I'm looking for. I want MNP. He's just part of that. So I have to take that 110 and subtract 28 from it. Okay, so 110 minus 28, I think that puts us at 82 degrees, right? Okay, so this one here is a little tough for me to do here on the touch screen that I have, but I'm going to give it a shot. So I've plotted the 4 points. I think I put them all in the 4 right places, and they want to know what shape most accurately describes Ron's garden. So just looking at where these 4 vertices are, I can see right away that I have to at least have a rhombus, right? Because the diagonals are going to be perpendicular. This is a vertical line that connects these 2 points and a horizontal line that connects these 2. So I know that I'm definitely onto a rhombus. So the next thing I want to do is figure out, well, could it possibly be a square? So the thing that would make a rhombus a square would be perpendicular sides. Okay, so if I look at the slope from this point here at 4, 6, let's say, right? We have this one point that goes from 4, 6, and it goes over to 8, 2. Okay, let's think about what the slope of that line is. We subtract the y coordinates in the top, 6 minus 2, and then we subtract the x coordinates in the bottom, 4 minus 8. So I get a slope of 4 over negative 4, which is negative 1. Okay, and normally I would say, to just count that slope off. It's just hard for me to do that with the touch screen that I'm using. Okay, so now let's look at from that same point 8, 2 to the next point over there down at the bottom, that 4, negative 2. Let's think about what that slope ought to be, right? So if I subtract the y's in the top, we have 2 minus negative 2 in the top over 8 minus 4. And what's going to happen? We have 4, 2, that's really 2 plus 2, which is 4. 8 minus 4 is also 4. So I get 4 over 4, which is positive 1. So I do have slopes that are, write that over here, 4 over 4 equals 1. So the slope of this line is 1. The slope of this line is negative 1. So that means that they are indeed perpendicular to each other. So I have a rhombus because the diagonals are perpendicular. But now I have adjacent sides that are perpendicular, so I know I also must have a square. So square would be the most accurate representation of his garden. Okay, and in our last equation for today, we have a rhombus again. So remember what we know about the rhombus. They give me angle C to D to B. This is 6y living down in here. Okay, and then they give me A to C to B, which is 2y plus 10. Okay, so remember the diagonals in a rhombus bisect the angles, so this would also be 2y plus 10 in here. That's also 2y plus 10. They both have the same value. Okay, and then diagonals of a rhombus are perpendicular. So what do I have? I have 2 acute angles in a right triangle. So that means that those 2 angles have to add up to 90. So if I take the 6y plus the 2y plus 10, they ought to add up to 90 degrees. They're the acute angles in a right triangle. Okay, so we just solve for y. So 6y plus 2y is 8y. We can go ahead and subtract that 10 from both sides right away. So I have 8y equals 80, and then divide by 8. So y is 10. Okay, hope that's helpful for you. Don't forget to complete this assignment in Unified Classroom for credit.